point in most cases would be cautiously approaching a bend in the trail, which might take several minutes. We followed his lead with a lot of confidence. Upon arriving at our position, or some spot we picked for our position, we quickly settled in for the rest of the night. We had already made pre-arrangements for rotating guard duty. My shift was 1 hour before daybreak. We picked a place we felt had the greatest threat to post guard. Boy, that's rolling the dice. It would be better said that we were in position to listen. You try hard to get enough sleep before your shift, but that's easier said than done. My adrenaline must have been still moving like a train. I could remember having trouble keeping awake on past guard duties, but not on this night. I remember sleeping so light that I could hear the others switching their guard. When it was my shift and my replacement woke me, he whispered, "I hear something out there." With that bit of news, I wondered why this had to happen on my watch. I more quietly than quickly got into position a few feet away from where I had been sleeping. In fact, the whole team was behind this guard position, some 10 feet back, all sleeping within a small clearing of about 12 square feet. We were bunched up much tighter than how we would normally sleep. Not only did conditions encourage this tightness, but also our need for comfort and security played a part. Mostly getting to my position from memory, for the darkness was so much greater than before. In fact, I remember trying to see how close my hand was to my face before seeing it. I had a chance to reflect on this particular moment some 45 years later when I was spelunking with a friend in a cave in Tennessee. At one spot, I was by myself and shut off my light. In that moment, the darkness seemed to swallow me. This made me think on that dark night in Vietnam. One difference, in the cave, I could turn my light on, and I had no threat. Even though my darkness in Vietnam was cave-like, it was also compounded with so much moisture in the air, I felt I could move it with my hand. Needless to say, I was soaking wet in the dark. I dragged my camouflage lightweight poncho liner with me to use as a blanket, as if wrapping up with a wet towel. My posture was in the sitting position with my knees pulled up to my chest as my poncho liner covered me like a small teepee. I'm not sure how much I was in the ready position, for my M16 was butt down with the cold barrel up, touching my nose. Maybe enough time had passed to allow my friend, who I had relieved on watch, to settle in and get to sleep. Before I was able to give another thought to how wet it was or how dark it was, something was shifting in the thick foliage some 15 feet in front of me and seemed to be repositioning from where it was, even before I was in place. Micro thoughts rushed through my mind. Is it more than one enemy? Do they really know my position? At this moment, being in total darkness seemed like a blessing. In a split second, the movement in front of me had gone from one Charlie to maybe a company size. In what seemed like less than a minute, it had moved toward me at a 45-degree angle, some 10 feet now off to my right side. Now my company size invasion was starting to give way to a possible animal, which I felt was a good trade. All in the course of a few minutes, this thing had finally positioned itself right in front of me and my wrapped teepee. I was surprised that the sound of my heartbeat did not wake my team, who was sleeping in comfort, knowing I had everything secured. Oh, if they only knew. What seemed like a stalemate game, and before I could run this what if through my mind, in fact, I'm sure I got that far in my thoughts, before my unknown threat suddenly, with a burst of speed, surged forward as if it knew exactly what it intended to do. It leaped at me with a death grip hold and wrapped 4 skinny but surprisingly strong limbs around my right leg. At this moment, the screaming eagle in me had lost a heartbeat or two. And maybe more than that, I instinctively shoved my right arm between my leg and his death grip, and with the force of a freight train, hurled this monster over my head and behind me. I could hear it now sailing over my head in slow motion, and with a sudden impact, landing right in the middle of my sleeping team 10 feet away. I was surprised this creature wasn't hurled 50 feet back due to the adrenaline of fear that was rushing through my body. My team is now scrambling and cursing with whispers from this surprise. As the moment was unwinding and more composure was mustered up by the guys, I could hear our intruder scrambling away. Even with all that sudden surprise in a night combat operation, I was amazed that my team kept their control in that moment. After that, it wasn't long before I noticed that our darkness was slowly disappearing as the morning light was penetrating the jungle canopy. Even at this moment, we were quietly discussing that sudden wake-up, and we agreed it was probably a small monkey. It seemed pretty big to me. We learned also that one soldier had gotten bit on the thumb as it was struggling for an exit. Our reverse trip back that next morning wasn't nearly as intense as the night before. That evening, I added another layer of combat experience, but more than that, a greater appreciation for each day. I did find myself reflecting on that history class in 1964, not realizing then just how much I would be involved in current events. But most of all, grateful that this screaming eagle had one less day to do in country.